Okay. All right. I think we finally got our schedule down. So every week we are going to be on here. I'm Megan Marsh. This is
And
my business
I'm Andre Munar.
and veterans in the mortgage broker industry. And, we get a lot of questions from people about who can be a mortgage broker, who should be a mortgage broker. And so each Tuesday, we're going to be covering different topics just for 5-10 minutes, some just to answer your questions. And today we just want to start out with who can and should become a mortgage broker. And
That's a
so
great question.
it is because we strongly feel like it is one of the best ways to help customers get into homes, save
Hmm.
money, and
And
maybe
it's
let's
certainly not something that, you go into the 12th grade and you're like, you know what? I want to become a mortgage broker when I grow up.
no, like they don't even talk about any of these jobs in school, and they're such
No.
great jobs. Like this year, yes, it's definitely a little hairy this year with the rates going up and people not being used to it. But for 18 years, this is maybe 2 years that it was a little hairy, right?
Yeah, agreed. It's kind of its own like little field. I guess it's like the whole real estate industry thing. Nobody really grows up and says, I want to become a realtor or an insurance agent or whatever it may be. So I think this is a great topic. People really want to know,
Mhm.
who can do it. So let's get started.
Yeah. So let's start. I think a big question will start kind of in the bottom, which is a lot of people will ask, what type of experience do you need to be a mortgage broker, which is also loan officer? It's simultaneous. So,
Mhm.
Dre, what experience does somebody need?
You really just need to be able to breathe, take lots of deep breaths when you're really frustrated. You don't need any experience per se, if it's something that you want to get into. So to keep that answer super basic, you don't need any experience going into it. But Megan and I did both work in the era before licensing. So literally before you needed licensing, you would just walk into a mortgage company and you'd be like, I want a job. And they would say, perfect, it's a commission only job. And they'd say, okay, you're hired. And then some shady stuff happened. And I think for the better of the industry and for the consumers, they required some licensing. And so now there is an education piece to it. So are required to do 20 hours of education, and then take a national exam. So besides that, there's no experience.
Do you need a college degree?
You do, you do not.
No, you need a high school diploma. So you need to have a high school
Oh
diploma.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I was like, that's a trick question. Actually, that's a great question. There are no states that require a college degree, right? No
Nope.
states that require.
So, for anyone who is interested in financing type fields, this is a great financing like field. That's a different type of career than like being a financial advisor, right? Like insurance agents, like it kind of fits in that category. And so anyone can become a loan officer, mortgage broker, but starting at the beginning, if you have no experience, you are going to need to go and work for someone before we're going to move into the next category, which is who can open their own mortgage brokerage, which is another subset of who can be a mortgage broker. So if you're interested in people that I find do well as mortgage brokers, loan officers, are you like to talk to people, you like to help people, you can make very, very good money if you're good at those other two things. Because I find people who have that teaching heart or have a heart to serve others do very well in this, and you can get paid very well in this industry. It's one of those industries that doesn't require a lot of education, that you can grow a very fruitful career and income stream.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. Even accountants, like yourself, somebody who likes to work with numbers, somebody who likes to put puzzle pieces together. because it is a very, very, and people laugh when we tell them this, but it's a very, very steep learning curve. I mean, you have 5 different handbooks with hundreds and hundreds of guidelines. And so if you're somebody who always likes to learn and likes to put puzzle pieces together, whether it's tax returns or scenario questions, for me, also somebody who's in the restaurant industry, somebody who doesn't mind putting in 12 hours a day, who doesn't mind working nights and weekends and being available and accessible, you can do really well. But you also have to understand that it does come with some stress. But yeah, like Megan, you were saying something about insurance agents, which brings me kind of to the question, people ask, who could potentially open up a mortgage brokerage? And people are always like, well, as a broker owner, who can open one up, or who should open one up, or what other career fields out there might go hand in hand with making you think like, hey, maybe this might be a great business, either full time or as additional income.
Yeah. And so it all depends on the state that you're in. So if you've been a loan officer working at someone else's company, which is a majority of our industry, 80%. If you've been working for someone else, doesn't matter if it's at a bank, if it's at a credit union, if you've been doing loan origination activities, then you can open up a brokerage. Now, some states, what determines if you can do it after 6 months, a year, 2 years is your state. So every state determines how long you need to have been a loan officer. So, for example, I have a little chart up in front of me, and Pennsylvania, where we both started, there's no time frame. So after 6 months or a year, you could file to open your own mortgage broker company where you get 100% of the commissions that come in, right, to then manage as a business and what you spend it on. But there are states that require a longer time period, like New York, for example. They have a 2-year experience rule. Then North Carolina want you to have 3 years in residential mortgage lending. Okay, some states will say, 1 year in any type of origination. And then some states have no requirement for this. So to determine if you've met that requirement, for all of you who have done origination activities, you would need to check your state license, which I will put in the chat, which the chat won't be up if you're watching this after. There is a link that it's the NMLS link for the states, and they have a complete checklist that explains that. I think the longest one I've seen, which I was going to look at because it seemed a little crazy to me, was New Hampshire was 5 years.
Wow. I thought
And
it was
the
Arizona that was 3 or 2. I didn't realize that New Hampshire required. They really want you to know what you're doing up there.
Yeah, I would say of the 50 states, there's less than 10 that have a time frame on it. The rest of them, you've got 10 who are like 1 to 5 years the most, and the rest of them are, about or nothing, right? So, if you are thinking about it, you'll want to look up your state. Let's talk about now, that was for loan officers with origination experience. Let's talk about how a lot of states will count other types of experience. So what kind of experience, if you're not a loan officer, might be considered as part of it, Dre?
Yeah, we actually had that situation happen, Meg, if you remember, where we were trying to get our Ohio license, and somebody for one of our branches, and that specific person wasn't a loan officer for, I think it was Ohio. I think they required like 2 or 3 years of experience in, they don't exactly say it in this way, but they just wanted experience. And so we used her banking experience. She had actually worked at a bank. And so, and they accepted that, she had been a teller before, she had been the manager of a bank before. And so they accepted that as her experience. I'm wondering what other experience they would use. I don't know. I would have to assume that maybe they would use real estate experience,
Real
just being
estate,
around, that kind of, just this kind of environment and industry.
real estate title. I've seen even financial advising, and that's where the checklist should spell out like it's like associated experience like in the industry. But if it's not clear, you can call that state and ask them, does this count? And so now I want to clarify one more thing, because like I know a good handful of real estate brokers who have opened their own mortgage brokerage. But let's say you don't, like you're in a state that requires 2 years of mortgage origination experience. Okay. You can still open and be an owner of a mortgage company. Anybody can be an owner of a mortgage brokerage. Okay. You can be a member of that business, but then you have to have someone with the licensing experience to either, depending on the state, be partial owner or that key person that the license is being.
The qualified individual.
Thank you. And so
that's what they just call it.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways to skin the cat. We'll kind of wrap this up for today. But we just wanted to make sure. So there's so many ways to open a mortgage brokerage. The reason why maybe a real estate agent or an insurance agent who has a lot of customers who have mortgages, why you might want to open up your own mortgage brokerage is it's a great ancillary business that you can offer these other services when you already have a customer base you've worked really hard to create. And it allows you to have another income stream. And so depending on your state, if you can do it just yourself, or you need to get some good people involved in your business with you, I think it's a really smart thing to do, especially with how everything's going right now. I know for those of you out there who are loan officers, or you have a steady job, or you've got a pipeline at a company, the next question is like, okay, how much does it cost to open up a mortgage brokerage? And so next Tuesday, we're going to be walking through the startup costs, those initial costs of opening up the brokerage. And so if these are all topics that you would like to continue to hear a little bit more about, because there's so much misinformation, just make sure you follow on whichever channel. The Collab Life is the brand, and the website, the collablife.com, is our website that is all about information for real estate, mortgage, the real estate industry, adding these income streams. We do have a webinar every Friday. We will put a link in the comment for that. The URL is thecollablife.com/mortgage broker. If you would like to join us on that webinar, it's a 45-minute webinar where you can ask questions at the end, and where we will, kind of pull the curtain back and show a little bit more behind the scenes, because the mortgage broker channel, or the mortgage broker option, is one of the best ways to get into more of the ownership side than being a lender or a retail lender. That takes a lot more. So mortgage broker channel is much more doable for most of you out there who are interested in it.
Thank you so much for joining us, collaborators. We will see you next time.
Next Tuesday, 1:00, we'll be doing these lives, and then Fridays are the webinars. All right. See you guys next week.
Bye-bye.